Alright, hello. I am at my favorite coffee shop one more time. Outside this time because I was freezing to death inside. I don't have air conditioning in my apartment, so I get into the air conditioning and then I freeze, right? I'm trying to talk to you from outside. It's a little bit bright, so I'm going to be squinting the whole time, but I don't want to have my sunglasses on because I want you to be able to see my eyeballs if you want to. So I'm going to attach an accompanying document to this. I'm going to just sort of go through this document with you. I would advise you to have it up as we chat right now. So it's 2 pages. Let me scroll up to the top. So yeah, I'm outside, so there'll be noise. I apologize. Okay, so let me just kind of give you an overview of what I'm looking for here. In these weekly or bi-weekly essays, what I'm really looking for is for you to take control of this information, for you to record as best you can for your future researching self what it is that you read. One, summarize. What you found most intriguing about what you read, which is where we come into the themes, and then also where you went to find out more information. So I want you to come up with, when you look into those theme investigations, when you start to really get inside of your own theme and seeing, like for this week, what did Herman say about rapeability, for example? I want you to bring some questions to the table. What's the natural questions that come up for you? And then I want you to go onto the free internet, and I want you to go into some scholarly articles and try to find, not answers, but just more ideas, more people talking about this. Fill out the conversation on your theme. So it's as though there's a conversation that's been going on about your theme before you ever arrived into the conversation. And in week 5, I'm going to ask you to write a final project that inserts yourself as a thinker, as an intellect, as an analyst. You're going to insert yourself into this conversation, but in order to do that, you have to be read up on it. So in the next 4 or 5 weeks, you have an opportunity to read a couple of scholarly articles every week, if you'd like, or a couple of book chapters every week, if you'd like, as well as to get on the free internet and see what the popular culture conversation about your topic is. And that way, when you get into week 5 and you write that final project, you've got every week that we've read, you've got not only what you were reading for the class, but also these extra sources. You've got summaries of them, you've got analysis of them, and that kind of brings us to this idea of audience, right? So when you are reading, when you are rewriting or writing or reading your essays for each week, I want you to be thinking about who the audience of this paper is, and it's you. It's 5 weeks from now you. It's future researching you. So does that future researching you need to know things like, I found chapter 1 to be the most interesting chapter of the entire book? Or will future researching you be more inclined to know information like, in chapter 1 of the book, Herman says this, very pointedly, very directly. Here's a summary. Remember what you read 5 weeks ago? It was this. And so you want to avoid sentences that begin with things like, I found this interesting, because your future researching self is not going to care that you found it interesting. And in fact, if you took the time to write about it, they're going to know you found it. You're going to know you found it interesting. It's kind of like you're calling attention to the obvious here. I wrote about this, therefore I'm interested in it. Omit that entirely. That's very fluffy. You don't need that in your paper. You don't need to be telling your future researching self things that she or he already knows. So you also don't need to say in your essays, when I was 15, this is what happened, because you already know that. And your audience is not me. I'm only looking at your papers to help you shape them into a research log that will be useful and beneficial to yourself. So think about that as you're going through there. Keep your audience in the first of your mind here, and it's future researching you. What would you anticipate yourself needing in 5 weeks to write a great paper? Think about when you go on vacation. You anticipate what you might need when you go on vacation, and you put that in the bag and nothing else. So as you're writing these essays, you want to put what you need to know in 5 weeks, and more or less nothing else. Remind yourself also to give titles, authors, page numbers, because let's pretend you're in week 5 and you've got 5 essays scattered out in front of you from the last 5 weeks. Well, if you don't have any page numbers or book titles associated with those, they're all going to look the same. You're going to go into Levine's book with Herman's notes because you never even used the name Herman. So you've got to be really precise with yourself. These are memory aids for you, for your future researching self. It's for you. So make sure that you're reminding yourself of what you're going to need, right? Take a little bit of forethought. I'm asking you to think in a way that I know is not something that you've done before. I know that other teachers ask for you to do it differently. I understand all that. I'm asking you to do it this way because I'm trying to get you to think in a certain way. I'm trying to get you to think in a way that will help you develop a long research project, so that if anyone ever comes to you and asks, and asks you to do a research project that lasts 6 weeks, you'll think to yourself, I already know how to do this. I'm going to cut this down, I'm going to break it down, I'm going to read 3 big books, a bunch of little stuff, a bunch of stuff on the internet, I'm going to take notes every single week, summarize for myself, remind myself what I've just read, and then in week 5 I'm going to have this huge archive of information that I can then pull in together and start reading and rereading and analyzing and synthesizing that little collection that I've made, rather than having to go back and look at all of the books and articles that you read, which would take another 6 weeks. You're going to have that all condensed for yourself. So always be mindful of those kinds of things, that you're not going to remember in week 5 what Herman said, because we will have read another book and a half by then. You will have read 4 or 5 more scholarly articles. You will have read a bunch of stuff on the internet. You're not going to remember what Herman said in week 5, so you have to make note of that right now. How can you remind yourself exactly what mind frame you were in as you were reading this, exactly what you found most intriguing, and exactly what that outside research uncovered for you and helped provide insight for? You want to be really complete and thorough in these summaries. However, you don't want them to take up all of the space of your essays. So sometimes you're going to have to summarize your summaries down even more, and just keep crystallizing until you have a nice pointed statements about each chapter or each article or whatever. But that doesn't take up the whole thing. I would say space-wise, you're looking, this goes on to the next point, let's say space-wise, you're looking at about, we'll say, maybe a third of the essay will be summary of the chapters that are assigned for us to read together. Then let's pretend that another third of the essay is your own outside research into your theme investigations, and then we'll pretend that another third of the essay is your synthesis of those things together. How would Herman and all of these outside resources that you've got here, how would you put those together? What would Herman and all these people talk about if they were around a table together? What questions would Herman raise? What questions would the other authors raise to Herman? So you've got a third, and a third. I put it in these points here. Summarize the reading. Pull out 2 or 3 major ideas that relate to the theme and discuss those from Herman maybe. Add your own research, and then finish with the synthesis. So you've got kind of a rough schema of what you're supposed to be doing here. I'll leave it to you to read those points individually, but hopefully that will help guide you a little bit more, and it's more like an assignment description in the traditional sense. And a lot of you guys have asked for that. I don't like them. I always hate assignment descriptions because I think they confine me too much, but I also realize that they're helpful for a different kind of learner. So there it is for you in 4 bullet points, kind of what I'm looking for and what I think will be most helpful to you when you get into that long research paper at the end. Based on my experience, what is it that I needed when I was doing all these long research projects to do all this education? And it was really, really good notes that stayed objective, didn't tell me what I thought about stuff, but just gave me the facts so that at the end I can make up my mind what I thought about things rather than at the beginning, right? Reserve judgment and just give me the facts, ma'am, right? Sorry, I keep looking around. One of my friends is supposed to show up in a minute. I'm going to have to give him a wait just a second. I'm talking to my students. So I gave you some questions to ask. Will the materials I read this week come to life again for me when I read them in the future? Did I capture what I believe to be the most important things that I read? These are kind of just when you're revising at that very last moment. Did you do what you needed to do for yourself, for your own success? Are you setting yourself up for success here? So try to think less about what it is that I want and think more about what it is that you will want. That's where I'm trying to make your mind go. That's what this whole form is about. So I need you to stop thinking so much about me and think more about yourself 5 weeks in the future, okay? These questions will help you sort of start to tweak your imagination into that direction. And then I just reiterate what I said at the beginning. Between now and the time that you guys write these final papers, you're going to read a bunch more information. So don't rely on memory. Write it all down. I think that's everything that I wanted to say. I'm going to publish this video. I'm going to publish that document so that you guys have it. If you have questions for me, I encourage you guys to find me on Skype. I'd love for you to send me an email. It's all weird. I'd love for you to send me an email and let me know a couple of times that you have free. I will be driving most of the day on July 4th, and then I'll be in a conference at Eastern Kentucky University the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th. And I'll leave the night of the 7th to go to Hazard, where my family lives. So I'm actually in Richmond on the 5th, 6th, and 7th of July, in the night of the 4th, which I know you'll be busy. If you'd like to get together and talk face-to-face, perfect. If you want to Skype, perfect. Just know that I'm super, super, super busy, but I will try to get you guys, when I get to Kentucky, I'll kind of maybe give you some office hour type things where I will make myself available through Facebook chat if I can. I'll make myself available through Skype if I can. And then you guys can also send me maybe 2 or 3 times that you might have free if you want to talk face-to-face. I'm hoping this video will give you a little bit of encouragement, a little motivation at a general level. I sent you each specific comments that just sort of told you kind of where you fit inside of this general idea that I'm painting here inside of the video. But I am always available to you. I want to make myself as available as possible, so please do get with me and let me know if there are specific times that work best for you and you want to Skype or even meet at like Starbucks or something in Richmond. Yeah, I think that might be everything. I'm going to post all this stuff online right now. Comment on the video if you have questions pertaining to what I've said here. Comment on the document if you have questions pertaining to that. And otherwise, continue on with the conversation about Part 2 of Judith Herman. Make sure that you go to the Part 2 discussion board, the Part 2 doc. It says Herman 2 or whatever, but it's not the same one we were doing for week 1. It's a separate doc altogether, and I'm doing that so that I can keep track of who's attending and how much each person's attending each week. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of sped through that. I think I got everything. It's under 12 minutes. If you have more questions, I'm absolutely happy to answer them for you. I really want you to take control of this material for yourself. Think about your future researching self as your audience. Be less concerned with reading my mind and figuring out what I want in the assignment description, and be more concerned with placing your imagination 5 weeks into the future when you write this final project. What could you possibly need? What are you going to need to remember here? That's the kind of questions you want to be answering. Finally, last thing I'll say, and then I'll go. Each week, at the very end of each essay, you might want to just pose a few questions to yourself, because a lot of you guys need some sort of motivational questions to guide your reading. Okay, the themes are doing that for you, because each time you sort of read a line, you're thinking, is this talking about metaphors, or is this not talking about metaphors? So you're already sort of guided in your reading, but you can even give yourself more specific research questions. Maybe a question lurked in the back of your mind this whole week. As you're reading this coming week, you can actually sort of start to try to answer that question or address that question. So always pay it forward. Always think forward in this class. We're thinking toward that final project. It's very cumulative in that way. So don't forget Herman. Keep Herman in mind as we go on to Carruth. Keep Carruth and Herman in mind as we read Levine. And all of this builds up. And so in that final project, you'll have Herman's thoughts on rapeability, Carruth's, Levine's, the 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 articles that you read from the databases online, the scholarly articles, a bunch of internet sources. All of these things are going to go into conversation to paint this huge picture of what it is that you're doing with your theme. What is the conversation going on around your theme? And how are you injecting yourself into that? How are you appropriating the argument? How are you confronting the argument? Are you agreeing with it? Are you disagreeing with it? You have to kind of see the big picture before you know exactly where you fit inside of it, what niche you're taking of it. So it's sort of a really global way of thinking here. I'm hoping that you guys can adopt it and learn it as we go through the semester. If it's the first time you're ever doing it, don't panic. And don't put too much pressure and stress on yourself to learn it right away. I'm not grading you at the end of the semester by how well you were able to write all of this stuff. I'm gauging as we go week to week your advancement. I'm gauging how much more insightful you've gotten since last week, how much more precise your summaries are, how better able you are to synthesize this material than you were the week before. And that's how I'm gauging your engagement. That's how I'm gauging your development in this course. I don't expect us all to end up at the same place. I expect us all to keep struggling toward learning how to write this way and learning how to think this way about the material that we're reading. So that's where I fit in this Women in Trauma course. You guys are reading content. You are just reading content. You're filling your minds with this content, and I'm kind of the guide back here saying, now put it together like this, structure it like this, form it like this so that you don't lose it, so that you've got it, so that you know this technique of note-taking and this technique of putting projects together. So that's kind of how I see my role as kind of the puppet master back here, helping you construct these thoughts and put them down in such a way that you can synthesize them at the end in ways that you never imagined that you could. So have a little faith in yourself. I have faith in you, and I'll see you again soon with more lectures. Probably not this week over Herman Part 2, but definitely the Carruth material I'll lecture over because it's a little more difficult than the Herman stuff. Looking forward to keeping up with you guys on the chat this week. Please ask questions, answer each other's questions. Don't forget about the research archive. You want to add your own research and research that you find that might be interesting to other people in there. That should pick up quite a bit this week because now you guys are really honed in on the fact that the research is required as part of the grade. So talk on the discussion boards, add research to the research archive. Send me a Skype invitation if you want. I'm here for you. I am behind you 100%. I'm on your side. I'm trying to get on board with your project, but I'm also trying to push you to form that project early on because it's a short course. I'm going to stop rambling. Hopefully that gives you guys some better ideas. Let me know. See you soon.